Question number 19 for RPGaDAY 2016 is, what is the best way to learn a new game? Now, if someone's going to start a new game, I'd always advise them to at least have a look at the actual rulebook or skim through a quick starter or something like that, because it does help you get a general feel for the game. However, there are some things where it's far easier to have them explained by a person and to have them demonstrated to you than it is to actually just read the written explanation of them. And one example of this is the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars dice mechanics, which I'm very fond of the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars. However, I've got to admit, when I first looked at the books, despite the many examples, I didn't really see how the dice mechanic was going to work in game and what it was going to actually add to my role-playing experience, if you will. It was only after I played in a couple of one-shots, and I was lucky to play in a one-shot with Runeslinger and Andre Martinez, both at different times, both of them running a game, and that really helped me because it was an introductory couple of games that I played in, so they weren't expecting me to know all about the system, but just by watching the system in action and seeing how it worked, I found it a lot easier to sort of say, oh yeah, of course, okay, so rolling these symbols means this and rolling those symbols means that. Whereas although they tried to explain it very well in the book, it's one of these things where it's a lot more difficult to write down an explanation without making it truly massive than it is to simply roll some dice and then say to a person, oh, you might do this with this dice roll, or this dice might mean that you've succeeded but something bad has happened. So I think the absolute best way to learn a new game is to quickly skim through a quick starter or the rulebook in full if you have access to it, but don't try and take everything in at the start. Don't try and absorb it all. If you do, you'll probably end up just feeling a bit overwhelmed, and it might actually kill your enthusiasm for this new game before you even actually had a chance to play it. I think the best thing to do is just get a quick sort of overview of it, and then see if you can find a game where there's other new people playing in it, or where the GM has specifically geared it towards new players or people unfamiliar with that system. Then just throw yourself into it. Just play the game. No good GM, in my opinion, will mind if you ask a few questions. Now, hopefully, when you've skimmed it over, you'll have an idea of like the basics of the rules. And no GM is going to expect you to come to a beginner's game, or probably even a normal game, to be honest, and expect you to have mastery of every single little rule or subsystem in a game. So the best thing to do is jump into a beginner's game, as far as I'm concerned, and then ask questions if you're not sure. Because it's only by asking questions and getting answers off people who perhaps have more knowledge in the subject than yourself that you'll actually learn it, and seeing it in practice will enable you to link that knowledge with what you've seen going on in the game, and it'll stick in your mind far more than actually just sitting there and reading dry pages of text in a rulebook, scratching your head and not really being sure about what's actually going on. So that's my answer to question 19. The best way to learn a new game is skim the rules and then jump into a beginner's session and ask a lot of questions, as far as I'm concerned. I hope I'll see you tomorrow for question 20. Take care and happy gaming.